Hey, mama. Hey, mama. Hey, welcome to Dear Mama Purpose, Paid, and Peace. This podcast is for moms who are tired of living in survival mode. You're tired of doing things simply because it's always been done that way, or because your nervous system thinks that that's what you need to do to survive. This podcast is for you, mama. The ones who are ready to heal? Are you ready to do something different? This is for the mamas who are ready to rediscover themselves. Who are you, mama, outside of motherhood? And do you want to create a life that finally feels like peace? This podcast is your roadmap to do that. I'm your host, Kiosha. I'm a mom, a wife, a life coach, and a woman who's been through some things, okay? And I started this podcast because healing shouldn't feel like another task on your to do list. Listen, I talk to so many moms who are quick to tell me they just don't have time. They don't have time. They don't have the resources. So many moms would rather we when you think about healing, it seems like something that is on a list. It doesn't feel or seem like something that is fun. And so I fully understand why sometimes when we get to make that choice, we choose the thing that seems like it's going to bring us instant gratification, right? We don't want to choose the thing that actually feels like it's going to be work. And so I created this podcast because I want to be able to help moms heal and meet them where they are. Mamas, I understand life is busy. We got stuff to do. And so with this podcast, right, I want it to be a space where you can listen to it when you're folding laundry. You can listen to it on your way to work. You can listen to it with your children when you're getting them ready for school. This is your cheat code. This is your way to heal without making it a chore. You know what I mean? So, moms, I wanted to start off this first episode by telling you a little bit about who I am, right? What qualifies me? Why am I here? Why do I love the mama so much? I want to give you a little bit of insight into the moment that actually changed everything for me. When my son was 14 years old, he attempted suicide. Now he's 25. He's healthy, thriving, and healing. But that day broke me in ways I can't even fully put into words. At that time, I thought I was a good mom, right? All of my intentions were well. I worried about everyone else. I was worried about fixing and saving and managing and controlling. And somewhere in all of that, I stopped seeing myself. I stopped really thinking about what dreams I had, what I wanted to do for me. I really didn't know who I was outside of being a mother. I remember sitting in the hospital room with my son and holding his hand, and I was lost, y'all. I was so confused. And I remember saying, what did I miss? How did we get here? And the hardest part was realizing that it wasn't just him in pain, it was me too. I had never learned how to regulate my emotions. I had never learned how to communicate without reacting, right? I had never learned that resting is okay. Those were things that I never learned to do. So I was living in survival mode too. I was parenting from pain. I had become a mother before I had even become a woman, right? And I was just really trying to figure it out. So that moment forced me to slow down and actually face myself, right? It was the beginning of my healing. It didn't happen overnight. It still took some time, but it was mostly because I was doing it on my own and I didn't have tools like this podcast, or life coaching or therapy. Didn't have those tools, or I'm not going to say I didn't have them. I'm going to say I didn't understand that I had access to them. So I didn't understand that they even existed, right? Like those weren't things that people in my family had utilized. Those weren't things that people in my community were marketing or supporting. So how would I know that it was an opportunity for me to connect? That experience taught me something so powerful. It taught me that our children's healing, it's tied to our own, right? The way that our children show up is a direct reflection of what we got going on inside of us. So often we think our kids just inherit our eyes and our nose, right? They might act like us when they get upset, but we forget that they inherit our nervous system too. If we're disconnected, they sense that. If we're in survival mode, they learn to live in that too. I mean, our children truly adapt to the environments that they're in even before we give birth to them. That fetus that is inside of us, mama, if we are going through a tough time, even before we give birth, our child's brain is developing based on what is going on outside of them. It is getting ready to weather that storm before it even comes into the world. And when I learned that, that was heartbreaking to me though, because you think about the child's brain is preparing to be put into a situation that they don't even know what it is, but the brain is just developing itself to be able to fight this battle that it knows it's going to have to face when it gets on the outside. So, mom, it's super important to understand that what we go through, no matter how much we try to hide it from our children, it absolutely impacts how their brain develops and how they handle situations and problems on their own. So, I mean, the truth is, right, we can't pour peace into a child from an empty cup. If we are not practicing self care, if we are not loving on ourselves, if we are not telling people no, if we are not, doing things that we love, then we can't pour peace into other people because we can't find peace in ourselves. So, healing doesn't necessarily mean being perfect because some people think that, oh, if I'm healing, right, that means that I'm better than certain things and I'm better than certain people. But that's not necessarily what healing is about. Healing is about fighting your own demons, and it's that you versus you mentality. It means becoming aware of your triggers, right? Your patterns, your pain, and then learning how to respond instead of react, learning how to communicate, right? Learning how to not be triggered by certain things in a way that it depletes you and it makes you suffer. So that's what this podcast is all about, mama. It's about learning to choose peace on purpose, right? Learning to do those things on purpose, not just for your kids, though. You're doing this for you as well. You're doing it for your bloodline, yes, but you're doing it for you as well. So I hope that this makes sense. I hope that this is helpful. I hope that you are clicking that subscribe button because, mama, listen, this podcast, it's going to be a hybrid. So it's going to be a mix between just me chopping it up with y'all and being guests, sharing their story of triumph. And some of them may not be on the other side of their story yet. They may still be in it, but where they are can still benefit someone else. And so that is how this podcast is going to be. It's going to be filled with moms, creating a safe space so we can meet every mom where they're at and they can learn to heal and feel safe enough to do so. So, I'm going to walk you through some of these signature portions of the podcast here. I put this together very intentionally in a way that we can do the work together. And so you won't feel isolated in doing the work, but so you can also have something tangible to take away from this episode or this podcast besides you just listening to me yap, right? You have something to take with you. So, the dear mama portion. This portion is going to be given to the guests, and then if it's not a guest, then I'll do that for you. But it is really based on what we talked about in the episode, and it's a way for me to reach out to the mom that is where I was 5 or 10 years ago, right? No matter where you are right now, there is always a mama that was where you were before. And what that means is that your story can always benefit someone. So, this Dear Mama portion is to remind moms that they are not alone, that there is always a mom that is out there that is right where you need to be. You're right where you were. I'm sorry. You're never on an island alone. There's always a mom that is struggling with what you're struggling with. And so, your story can always support someone. So, That is what this next segment is about. It's about healing and knowing that you are not alone. So, this is the Dear Mama portion that reminds you that you're not doing it alone and reminding you that somebody needs to hear your story. So, we're not healing in isolation. Dear Mama, you did the best that you could with what you knew. But now it's time to do better, not from guilt, but from grace. You deserve to breathe, to rest, to feel joy again. You are not broken. You are blooming, and your healing is your legacy. So until we meet again, Mama, I want you to carry this affirmation with you. And I like affirmations because it is a way to reprogram your brain. We don't realize it, but our brain we communicate in words, but our brain actually communicates in stories, right? So what that means is that it's about us telling ourselves a different story in order for us to move past certain things. So the affirmation that I want you to carry with you until we meet again is I am healing generations by choosing myself first. Did you hear what I said? I want you to listen to it again. I am healing generations by choosing myself first. And then I'm going to give you a journal prompt as well. I really love journal prompts because it really allows you to really just think about what it is that you're going through and actually come to an answer. I believe that the answer is always right inside of you. You always have the answer that you need because you're always right where you're supposed to be. And so journal prompts allow you to actually get those things out and come to a decision. So this journal prompt that I want you to work on until we meet again is what part of me is still operating from survival mode? And what would it look like to feel safe instead? So let me read it again. What part of me is still operating from survival mode? And what would it look like to feel safe instead? So oftentimes I hear people say, well, I don't know what survival mode is. So survival mode is doing something out of survival. And when I say survival, that means something, someone, somewhere made you feel a certain way. And now your nervous system feels that it needs to do something a certain way in order to feel safe, right? So that can be, you may be that person saying yes all the time because you're afraid that someone may reject you. And that may be because of something that happened in your childhood, right? And maybe because of the way you were raised that makes you feel like saying yes is the way that you appease people. And so that is something that you do all the time, right? It could also be survival mode, could also be saying asking for help is too difficult. And so you find yourself in a space where you're doing everything all on your own because you feel like asking for help is difficult, or you feel like asking for help makes you weak. So that is you living in survival mode. Somebody somewhere made you feel like, right? Doing this thing that would actually elevate you should actually make you suffer, right? And that is how you know when you're living in survival mode. So I want you to think about like, what are some ways that you live in survival mode? What are some ways that you operate in life that are not helpful to you? Right? Because that is really where your healing lies. We do so many things that we don't even realize are not helpful to us. And so I want you to really focus on that until we meet again. It's like, what are some things? Take some inventory, right? Like, think about what are some things that you're doing on a daily basis that are not getting you closer to your goal, right? Because sometimes we say things, but then we do a totally different thing. So making sure that you're not doing one thing or saying one thing and then doing another, okay? And mama, I want you to do these things without judgment. So often we prolong our healing because we are ashamed of who we are. And being ashamed of who we are keeps us stuck, right? Like who we are is who we are, but where we stay is a different story, right? And I don't even want to say who we are, right? Because who we have learned to be to remain, to be safe are the things that we are doing now, but we get to unlearn that behavior and be somebody else, right? But we just have to intentionally do those things. So make sure that you're doing those things without judgment, mama. So I want you to focus on that until we meet again. Actually looking at your triggers, looking at how you react, looking at what's placing you in survival mode, and doing those things without judgment. So thank you so much, mama, for sharing this space with me today. I know this conversation wasn't easy. I know looking at yourself without judgment isn't easy, right? We were taught as children to be ashamed of certain things. And so that is why we can't fully overcome a lot of things because we are ashamed of how they look on us. But in order for us to overcome things, in order for us to heal, we have to accept that sometimes we show up in certain ways and then we get to move past this. If this episode touched you, Mama, I want you to share it with another mama. I want you to share it with someone who you know has been carrying too much and have been doing it in silence. And if you're on social media, come hang out with me on Instagram. My handle over there is Kiosha, the life coach, the number 4, and Mamas. And Mamas is spelled Mommas. Or you can follow me on Facebook or both. On Facebook, I am Kiosha Henson, and we can keep the conversation going. So if you have any questions, my DMs are always open. You can join my Facebook group for moms. It's called From Chaos to Calm with Abundant Mamas, and that is on Facebook. That is a free Facebook group for moms, and you can ask questions and seek support in that group. Until next time, mamas, I want you to remember this: your peace is the assignment.